Hello, everybody, and welcome to WeAreDevelopers Live Week. My name is Ben Ruschin. I'm the co-founder and managing director of WeAreDevelopers, and I'm really excited about this panel because we've managed to get three of the main drivers and leaders of digitalization in the German-speaking region to join us at a single point of time. The topic of this panel is, what is the outlook for Europe's digital future? So I want to talk to the three leaders about where are we currently at, what does digitalization mean on a national or regional context, and what is the outlook for Europe in terms of becoming competitive as an economy, as a digital economy, and where are we headed to in the future? So I'm very excited to quickly introduce our three guests of honor. First and foremost, I would like to welcome Margarete Schramböck. She's the Federal Minister of Digital and Economic Affairs in Austria.
Hello, hi.
Welcome, Margarete. Thank you for joining us. Secondly, I would like to welcome Dorothee. Dorothee is the Minister of State at the Federal Chancellery and Federal Government Commissioner for Digital Affairs in Germany.
Hi, Ben. Great to
welcome,
see you.
Dorothee. Great to have you with us. And thirdly, I would like to welcome Marc Walder. He's the founder of Digital Switzerland and also the CEO of the Ringier Media Group, joining us from Switzerland. Hi, Marc.
Hi, Ben. Hi, everybody.
It's good to have you here. So thanks for being here. Before we start, I would like to just talk a little bit about what we're planning for today. First of all, we're going to talk about what does digitalization actually mean? How do we define it? What are the key performance indicators? How do we measure digitalization on a national level? Secondly, I would like to talk about the status quo. So how digital is Switzerland? How digital is Austria? How digital is Germany? Where are we currently at? And then what are each of you three doing, and what are you doing on a national, federal level in order to accelerate the rate of digitalization in your respective countries? So I'm going to kick off this conversation with Margarete Schramböck, and then I'll also ask Dorothee and Marc to join in. And the question to you three is, how do you define digitalization and how do you measure it? What are the key performance indicators that define how digital a country is?
Well, I think I'm happy that I can join this discussion. So I'm happy to be with you all. Digitalization is in different areas important, not only in the field of government, which is one, or public field is one of the most important topics, but of course in society also and for businesses. So we have these three pillars. So looking at digitalization in the different angles, for me as a person, as an individual, as well as for companies, how competitive they are, and then where does the government stand. For Austria, when we look at e-government especially, and I am talking about mobile government. Mobile government has given us really a step ahead. We have put this as one of our principles because I'm convinced that only by putting it on mobile devices, you can work on making processes and applications or what else you need much easier. So if you do this, then you rethink the whole process, and then you arrive at a real e-government, which has to be possible anywhere, anytime, whenever our customers, and these are all citizens of Austria, want to do it. So therefore, we have created a new platform, which is called Österreich GV.at, and an app where Austrian citizens can do their public applications in a way on even the mobile devices. They can move from one location to another and can do this, or even when they expect a baby, we do have a special corner for this where I can even name the baby. And more than a few thousand Austrians have used this for their babies, but they can also have all the different other topics they need, like a card for elections. And I want this to be the same for whole Austria. All these single solutions are great and they're best practices and we can incorporate them. But finally, we want to have one information platform and one platform at least for for our government. And then, of course, we also talk to cities and to the smaller villages so that they can also put their services on this platform. So this is for government part, and this has brought us from number 6 or 5 in e-government index up to number 3 in Europe, only outperformed by Malta, and by Estonia, or Estonia and Malta. Second is people in their daily lives. We need to take care that they have the capacity and the capabilities of using all these services, because it doesn't make sense to offer the services and they cannot use it. So we have formed a special platform fit for internet for all people, especially the elder generation, where we do courses all across Austria. And when the coronavirus crisis is over, we will, of course, restart this again. We have done it in a digital way, and a lot of people have used it, even the elder generation. And then the third topic is, of course, for businesses. Here I'm most of all worried about small and medium-sized businesses. We have seen now in the crisis that e-commerce is not enough spread. We have talked a lot about it, but a lot of companies have missed out the opportunity before. They have now realized that it's so important, so we have started special programs to e-commercialize them very quickly and to help them to get into this field, not to substitute their traditional business, but to be in addition. And all about this and all around this is, of course, education, digital education, not only for elderly people, but also in the schools, and we do have this plan. Altogether, we have a digital action plan for Austria, which of now in the corona crisis is a little bit adapted, but where all the actions of all ministries are included in the health sector, in the justice area, as well as all the other sectors. And there we try to move ahead as quickly as possible and hopefully get back to normal. And digitalization has helped us in the crisis a lot. Because it has offered a lot of opportunities like homeschooling, like home office, and a lot of people have used it. And before, I have always heard it's not possible, we cannot do this, we cannot do that. And suddenly everybody is using it, and it has beamed us a little bit into the future. And if you want to have a small positive effect, of course, of what is never positive, but it has helped us in this way to apply things which are there for a long time.
Thank you, Margarete. Passing on to Dorothee, how do you define digitalization on a national level?
Well, first of all, Margarete is right with everything she said. So, and congratulations for speeding up, especially in e-government. But as Margarete pointed it out, in different ways, I think I can put it in one word. So for me, truly digitization or digitalization means it's a life relief. So that is the main goal, that people should know that technology makes their life better. We can live longer. Technology can save lives, as we saw during the last week. So for me, the main goal is really not only the life relief that we have it, but that everyone is convinced about it.
Thank you, Dorothee. Marc, what about you? What does digitalization mean for you, looking at the Swiss economy?
I don't want to be repetitive, so maybe I go into a couple of numbers. There is a lot of indexes, global digital competitiveness indexes existing. So I picked one which we believe very much in. It's the so-called IMD competitiveness index in terms of digitization. And let me start with a couple of rankings here. Again, you might think of indexes whatever you want, but I was going for the 3 countries here being present. So Switzerland is ranked number 5 on the global level. Austria is ranked 20th, and Germany 17. By the way, the first 4 countries in this IMD Digital Competitiveness Index is US, number 1, Singapore, number 2, Sweden 3, and Denmark 4, meaning that there's 2 out of Europe in here. Now, it's probably a bit more interesting if I go just a bit deeper and look at, I think, 2 crucial ones. And I was going for weaknesses, especially for these 3 countries. And one weakness is e-participation. Switzerland 37, Germany 23, Austria 40. And I was going for a second criteria, which is extremely important to myself. Starting a business. So how difficult or how easy is it to start a business? Because at the end of the day, all the big companies were startups a couple of years ago. So in starting a business, Switzerland is 38, Germany 23, and Austria 40. So what does that tell us? I think we're in the midfield somewhere, and there's a lot of improvement, especially in terms of e-participation, starting a business, and of course, and we come to that later, funding startups. There is, I think, the biggest difference.
What is your vision and what is your personal goal for the future of Europe? Again, starting with Margarete.
Well, the vision and the goal for us all needs to be that we are leaving this area of being middle performers, because there we are, if we take all indicators together, and to be in the top league. This is where we all want to be, and where we need to have the frame conditions in each of our countries, but not only in the countries, but also together. So as from the European Commission, for example, we need a framework which is enabling us this and offers us also opportunities. So it's both in countries and it's on the European side. There has been done a lot so far. However, when I joined, because I was in business before, 22 years in IT industry, as CEO and in different other functions, I found out that there are a lot of papers and there's a lot of good stuff written and developed, but execution is the main topic. We can talk about broadband and about fiber and about 5G, which is important, and it's an important layer as infrastructure. But also we can talk about the knowledge base, and I think this is what Dorothee was also mentioning, and what she was addressing it. It is a change in life, and we need to enable and take with us everybody, not only the younger generation. And therefore, we need to focus also especially on this part. And my dream is that we take everybody with us in this on this journey, with different speeds and with different history. It is, of course, clear that countries come from different angles in Europe and have not the same conditions, all of the countries, but that we take care and that it is an opportunity for people to get a job, and it helps them to get an even better job and helps them to be more successful. Instead of what we often see in different studies, that we say, oh, digitalization is destroying jobs and is not creating new jobs. I'm convinced that it's creating new jobs, but what is important is that we take a lot of young people, but also people who are working in companies and also people outside it with us. From my experience previously in companies, we have a lot of people working in companies, which we think can use the full potential of digitalization, and we never think of the fact that they could miss something or they could need something. But indeed, it is that a lot are left behind if we do not take care. This cannot be done alone by the state, but it's shoulder on shoulder. It's a teamwork with the companies, which we need to do, which we need really do together.
Dorothee?
Well, I believe that our European approach, the approach we have to promote digitization, that our approach creates way more confidence than, for example, the Chinese approach. public acceptance is important to move ahead. And let me bring one example, maybe. So our European ethical standards in AI can make us the big winners in the field in the medium to long term. Maybe not in a short term, but I really believe in a long term. And it's important that we go our own way when using AI. So if you're asking for a dream, my dream is an AI made in Europe, an AI that's focused on the people, not on the government or on single different companies, big companies, but focused on the people. And it should be safe and trustworthy. It should prevent manipulation, maintain competition and diversity, of course. So our goal is a high performance AI made in Europe that's in line with our economic, our values and our social structure. So that's my big dream. And to be a little bit more concrete too, is that we have decided to invest in the development of a sovereign data infrastructure called Gaia X. And I talked to Margarete this week. Austria is doing the same. So we are striving for an efficient and competitive, secure and trustworthy data infrastructure for Europe. But on the one side for Europe, but on the other side, it's a European project open to users and providers worldwide. So that's very important for me to say that it's not a one-way street. So everyone can come to us. And if I compare it, for example, for our data protection, the laws we have, it's very interesting that a lot of other countries, at first they looked at Europeans. When I was at a big, at the CES 2 years ago, and they had a big discussion, IBM and the CES itself, and they were only talking about America and China. And then all of a sudden, the host asked the former IBM chef and the chef of the CES about Europe, and all of a sudden the word Europe was on stage. And then the CES CEO said, Europe, I don't want to talk about Europe because all they care about those Europeans is data privacy and data protection. So let's not take them seriously. And when you see how it changed, when you see, for example, that California adopted our laws, I'm really convinced that we can achieve the same when we are talking a trustworthy AI or trustworthy data infrastructure.
Okay. Marc, what is your vision and your personal goal for Europe's digital future?
Well, maybe I tell you a bit about my story because it's quite concrete. So I had the honor to found the initiative which is called Digital Switzerland, which would be replicable in Austria as Digital Austria or Digital Germany. And we started basically with 10 big companies. And the question was, do you think it's important that the area where you are having your company is being digitally fit? They all said yes. And so we started. The surprise was today we are close to 200 members who support the idea of making Switzerland a leading digital country globally. So it's the biggest companies out of basically all the sectors, the banking industry, the insurance industry, telecommunications, airlines, retailers, pharma, etc. But also the big institutions, like all the big universities, etc., are part of this. What did we achieve so far? So we focus very much on concrete projects. So we take care of startup enablement. We do take care of regulatory framework, of course, which we heard now from Margarete and Dorothee already, which is, of course, important, regulatory framework. We take care that the big companies don't get lost because they have to drive innovation. Think about the big car companies in Germany. It's absolutely crucial. They have 10,000s of employees that they keep up with the speed. We take care of, Dorothee mentioned, the normal people and the questions around trust. So we take care of the public dialogue. And therefore, and this is extremely interesting, we implemented a digital day. It was the first digital day ever in Europe, and we're doing now this for the 4th time. meaning that we have one day in Switzerland which is completely dedicated to experience digitization, to see a drone, to see a 3D printer which is printing Christmas cookies, to understand how voice recognition works, etc., etc. And we have hundreds of thousands of people who are during that day getting in touch with digitization in a very normal way. So for once, it's not about the political leaders. It's not about the CEOs and CTOs. It's about the parents and the children and the grandfathers and the granddaughters.
And we are copying you now.
Which is great, Dorothee. I know we have been in contact and it's great. And again, this has become almost a movement in Switzerland. Now, the vision is, I think we cannot turn, let's be honest, we cannot turn back the past 10, 15 years. And let's not bash Europe too much, because I always hear, where are our Facebooks and Airbnbs and Amazons and Instagrams and whatsoever? And my answer, and all we have is Spotify. I always say, look, if Mark Zuckerberg would have had to start Facebook in Austria, it would have probably not made it, because it's more complicated to scale a business, a platform business in Europe than it is in the US. Twitter probably wouldn't have been as big today if it would have been funded or started in Switzerland. But where is the chance, Ben, and then I'm finished, going forward? Europe doesn't have to be a digital leader in everything. The US and China do know how to do platforms and a couple of other things. But the chances I see is that we can become very well placed in really smart manufacturing. Blockchain is one thing. We do see that Switzerland is having a leading role in terms of blockchain. So advanced manufacturing, blockchain, robotics, deep techs, drones, etc. So let's not be good in everything, but let's try to be smart in a couple of things. And maybe one last sentence. When I talk to investors, the funding of the US companies is on a broader base. And this is now an important thing, I think, that I'm touching. So in the US, you don't only have the rich people, the big family office, and the personalities who put a lot of money into venturing. You do have pension funds, you do have insurances, you have closely linked to the government funds. And this is what we need to achieve also in Europe. We need to have a broader base of who actually is investing, and not only rich and already very smart people. We have to get a broader base. I think that is a very important point.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Marc. So
I can add something to this, if you allow. Ben, it's okay? Yeah, thank you. So what you have mentioned, I'm agreeing, especially if we look at what has been successful in the US, is mainly B2C. And I know that a lot of people who are watching us might be in the developing area, and what our strength is in Europe is B2B. And here we need to put also an additional focus, and this is what you mentioned by smart manufacturing, robotics, and all these topics, but it can also be in the software area. In B2C, of course, the US has started earlier and has done it in a different way. I'm not so convinced that it could have not been successful in Europe, only that this B2C bubble and area where the development was around this university campus was much better organized, was much better. It was happening, and there were a lot of conditions there which were not there in Europe at that time. But in between, a lot of time has passed, and I think that what Dorothee mentioned is that we do have competitive advantages over other areas. We also do have a big consumer area, but we do also have a good manufacturing in this area. I've been to Korea And I've been also to China, and they've asked me, how can we learn from you this smart factoring that you mentioned? Because especially in the SME era, I'm not talking about the large giants and the manufacturing like Samsung and so on, but I'm talking about the smart factoring in SME areas. And what we need there is, of course, data. And here, Europe needs to move one next step. How can we provide the data? We are good in data protection, but how can we add data data as one of our biggest treasuries that we have, and offer this in a way to startups and other in the community that they can use it to develop things. This is true for the healthcare sector, and it's also true for manufacturing, because I have talked to a lot of industries and I've said, you need to provide your data in a data pool to different startups. And it was hard to convince the different industrial companies that they are prepared to do so. Now technology has arrived to a state where this is possible with digital twins, and where you really do not give your identity and your data, and we need to have this framework, and we need to have it on a European basis, because case by case in Austria alone will not be enough, in Germany alone will not be enough, and I'm counting a lot on Dorothee and also on the whole team in Germany, because they have the presidency of the European Union, and we contribute a lot of countries in Europe, and we need to form these markets. And then, of course, countries like Switzerland and others outside the European are welcome to join and to also join this team and this group, because it does not end on the borders of the European Union. But we need to strengthen our effort in this to provide data and in an anonymous way to the community, so that they can work.
Thank you, Margarete, for these inputs. I would like to switch back to Marc, because you've actually started answering the next question we have for today. So the question is, what initiatives are you working on to accelerate the rate of digitalization in your country? And before you answer the question, I would like to just point out the Digital Readiness Index of Cisco, speaking of indexes, which defines several categories of digitalization. So for this index, they measured technical infrastructure, they measured the usage of technology, they measured the development of human capital, the standard of living, the degree of research and development, foreign direct investment, the economic environment, and also the startup environment. So taking these aspects into account, what are the initiatives you are working on in order to really accelerate digitalization as far as possible?
I can only summarize what has been said in a very straightforward way. I don't want to be too long. First of all, let's start with education. So my daughter is 11 years old. If I look at the weekly schedule she has in 5th grade, it is pretty much exactly the same I had. I'm 54 years old, so that must be 45 years ago or 44 years ago. She is learning what I learned 40 years ago. I was being provocative a couple of years ago, and I said, every kid in Switzerland needs to learn how to code. Let's start there. There was a big debate going on then in this country, and actually I just wanted to, start pushing kind of a snowball, because I was saying coding is the new writing and reading. So we have to start somewhere. We cannot import all the coders from somewhere else. I'm not sure if it's still true that every kid has to learn how to code. I don't know, but we have to learn in school again. Second point is, let's touch the normal people. We have to transport digitization to the normal people, because let's be honest, a lot of those people are afraid. I think Dorothee mentioned that, or Margaret, I'm not sure, maybe they lose their job. Maybe the learning curve is too steep. Maybe they are scared because the refrigerator starts to talk to them and so on. So that's the second point. The third point, again, is startup enablement, regulatory frameworks around startups, but also, as I said before, the funding. In Switzerland, I checked the number, we have 44,500 new companies that have been founded last year, which was a big record. 2 billion Swiss francs were invested into startups. It's not enough. It needs to be more because the failure rate is extremely high. We see this now during COVID-19. Next point is the big universities. They are stepping into a learning curve as well, because it's those professors and teachers who have to teach the next generation what actually digitization means. And then at the end of the day, and we're talking to the two ministers here of two very important countries in Europe, is of course leaders like you are, Dorothee and Margarete, who need to set the right framework around all these things that I mentioned. So it's around schools, it's about startup ecosystems, it's about the big companies who have the right conditions, who need the right conditions to further work. I think that's roughly the framework we need to have in place. And then again, focus on the strengths of Europe. And to finish with one quote or one number here, I checked the IP rights of the three countries being present here, because IP rights is kind of the foundation of where actually intelligence comes from. And look at this, how good these three countries are. IP rights on the IMD competitiveness index again. Switzerland, second place globally, IP rights. Germany, Dorothee, third place globally. So these two countries are global leaders in IP rights in terms of digitization, and Austria number 10. So we are all globally, and there's 98 countries. So there is a wonderful basis of knowledge here.
Marc, to just touch up on your focus on Digital Switzerland, what you mentioned earlier. My impression when you invited me to the Digital Day last year was that there's an extremely strong commitment from the leaders of private companies in Switzerland to really drive forward the digitalization of the country. When you invited me, obviously I wanted to promote WeAreDevelopers in Switzerland, so I contacted some people to set up some meetings, and on one day I met your country manager of IBM, of Microsoft, of Accenture, of EY, of Apple, and it was really easy to get these meetings, and they were so open, and I felt such a strong commitment from their side to collaborating, to pushing forward Digital Switzerland, and to really bringing forward the whole nation's national competitiveness. Why do you think that is?
I think because it has become sexy to do so. You know, managers do things when they realize this might be a good path to go forward. And I think the whole group, you know, these close to 200 members, realized we are a cool group, and it's cool to go forward, and it's good employment branding to do so. It's just, I would say, a domino effect that is in place here now in Switzerland. But again, it needs to be Europe that is pushing forward. Switzerland, if Switzerland is top on these rankings, that's okay, but we need to be strong all over Europe. And maybe one anecdote around the coding and how much speed sometimes can change things. So I told Alexander Vucic about a year ago during a dinner, he's the president of Serbia, and Serbia is kind of a hub within the Balkan area for digitization and entrepreneurs. I told him about the story that I wanted the kids in Switzerland to learn how to code. He thought it was a good idea and told Anna Brnabic about it, who's the prime minister there. And they actually started the program. And by now, 45,000 people in Serbia started actually to code. So within 1 year, you can change a lot.
Okay, thank you. Dorothee, what are the initiatives that you are focused on with regards to digitalizing Germany?
So first of all, I agree with Marc that we are not putting in the middle all the time our weakness where we are weak. So other countries do it differently. So let's put our strength in the middle of it, and not only for Germany or for Austria. I see really great opportunities as a business location all over in Europe, because we are all leading global economies. IP rights is a great example for but we have outstandingly positioned SMEs all over the world. And we do a second mistake. Our discussion is in English now. And the first time I figured out why we are always talking about our weaknesses was when I was in a discussion of the World Economic Forum in China. I was talking to my French colleague, and I talked over our hidden champions. And of course, we always quote it hidden champions in Germany too. And I'm like, okay, but why again are we hiding them? So let's then put them in the front and be proud of them. So we still call them hidden champions. So I don't do it for 2 years now anymore. But still, I think that's typical for Europe as itself. So we are outstanding in the development and in the production of embedded systems. We are very good in complex machinery, like Margarete said, B2B solutions, and much more. And we are great in sensor technology, in robotics, in photonics, in autonomous driving, of course. So more than 50% of all the IP rights are German IP rights on autonomous driving. So we had one of the first test beds in autonomous driving too. So let's put that in the front. I totally believe what Marc said concerning how do our children learn, what's important for us. And I don't even think not only our ministers or the teachers are scared, but parents are scared. So when I put like Scratch in primary school, the first one who is writing in a newspaper is a father who says that Wi-Fi is the new asbestos and it's not allowed to put it in school. So we really have to get the parents too. That's why, Marc, I said before that we are copying the digital day. So the German digital day will take the first time place at the 19th of June this year. Of course, it's going to be a real digital day, unfortunately, because of COVID-19. But I think the idea is great. We really have to take away all the fears, all the concerns. We are very, very good in fears and concerns. And Margarete, I always quote a professor from university in Vienna who had a study a few years ago where he said that Germany is the number world champion in not wanting to change. So, but when we are forced that we have to change, then we are number one too. So call it resilience, that we are very good in that too. So believe in our strength. And of course, because of Corona, because of COVID-19, we changed a lot now in digitization in the schools. We were very fast. And what really still makes me happy, we had the big hackathon worldwide. So at the beginning of March, the idea was born to set up a hackathon to bring up ideas. And the idea was born on a Monday. And 2 days later, on Wednesday, it passed our cabinet. 2 days later, in a democracy, and not only in a democracy, but in Germany, that was really nuts. And then we had 43,000 people who signed in for the hackathon. And then from Friday to Sunday, in 3 days, we had still 28,000 people who worked on so many ideas. And now 2 months later, we have a funding, we have ministries, we have people in the ministries who are godmothers and godfathers and helping our teams. And this is something which really shows me we can if we want to, but way better, or unfortunate, not if we want to, but we are forced when we are forced to do it. And so I don't know, some people say it's from Churchill, some people say it's from someone else, but what really helped me go through the crisis is never waste a crisis. And I think that we are really good in that, not wasting it, taking the best out of it. And so if you're if you ask what are the main topics working on, it's really the health system, a digital health system, digital education, and of course, transport is always on the top 3 too. And then we not only can survive it, but really can thrive to be on top, and not like Marc said, with copying, but maybe we can go a step ahead. And maybe one last thing, talking about transport. At the moment, we are talking a lot of, as one example, I know everyone is laughing about it, but one example, new air mobility, yeah, if you call it flight taxes or whatever. But our EASA at the moment is faster than the FAA. So I think really we have different fields where we can be on leading top of the world as Europe together.
Thank you, Dorothee. Margarete, I would like to pass on the word to you.
Thank you. Well, we have heard a lot of topics, and it shows us that this digitalization is in all areas of our lives. It's not only in just one area, but if you want to be successful and if you want to achieve that it really helps us and makes our lives easier, then we need to have a lot of different projects. And it's like this swarm intelligence. It's not about somebody sitting there. A ministry, of course, can help to accelerate things and to push things, and to put like the digital day with Digital Austria Day is also in plan, but has been a little bit postponed due to the Corona crisis. But it can really be a trigger, and it could really help. And I've seen countries that have this, and this is helping, of course, to put always the focus on this. That this is something who can promote us. At the moment, my biggest topic is, of course, the Corona crisis, and how can we help startups in these difficult days, because they have really worries. They cannot pay the salaries of their employees. They cannot pay the fixed. How can we help them? And here I can see that Austria and Germany, also Switzerland, have different, of course, programs to help them to get fixed cost paid, to get the salaries of employees paid. But I think they also need additional help in this time to have this co-investment, which we have put together, and private investors. This is a very special time. I think Marc has mentioned it.
Margarete, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm afraid we have some audio problems on your side. We're having some difficulty hearing you.
Okay, sorry for that. We check it.
Okay, I think, thank you, Margarete. We can continue. Maybe we managed to solve the audio problem. The fact that you have a Ministry of Digitalization, or Ministry of Digital and Economic Affairs in Austria, is a very clear commitment and a very clear statement on a federal level. So, touching upon this, my question to both Dorothee and Marc, in Switzerland and in Germany, we don't have a federal Ministry of Digital or Digitalization. Do you think there should be one? Is it something that's necessary?
Who is going first?
You.
Ladies
okay. Whoever is asking, of course. You are asking, do we need one? I will tell you, I'm sure there will be a digital ministry someday. I think more sooner than later, simply because it's very easy to communicate to citizens that if you have a digital ministry, it will solve all your problems. So, but I'm firmly convinced that the success of such a ministry depends totally how it's designed. So according to the principle, so I don't know if it's the correct word. In Germany, we would say Ressortprinzip. Maybe we can translate it like departmentalization. So what does it mean? It means that the cabinet ministers are really free to carry out all their duties. So, And that's why I really believe that they can carry out their duties independently within the boundaries set by the Chancellor's political directives, of course. Because of this principle and due to the fact that digitization is always with cross-cutting issues, so it's horizontally and not vertically, we would need to change laws in order to ensure success of such a ministry. So I really can't recommend that you put there a 14th ministry, put a sign on it, Ministry for Digitization, and then leave the man or the woman who is in charge then alone, because then it won't work. A digital ministry would have to be involved in a similar way to the Ministry of Finance, which is involved in legislative projects and measures of all ministries that touch on financial issues. And they have a right of a veto right. That's very important. At the moment, I don't see that we change a lot of competences, and I know politics. So in an ideal world, you would design a ministry, you would take out topics of different ministries before you know which party and which person is going to sit there. So that would be my ideal world. If you ask me, is one necessary? I think it can be worthy to build one. If you put it the same way, like we're doing politics for 70 years now, is that helpful? I don't think so. So a clear yes, no.
Marc, what do you think?
I agree with the yes, no. Switzerland has, and I had a lot of discussions with our government around that, launched now or communicated that we will have a delegate for digital transformation in Switzerland. He will be communicated, or she will be communicated in a couple of weeks. I think the ministers have to drive digitization within the ministry. That's the key. Digitization is teamwork. We see this in every company. Digitization, the need to transform a company, has completely redefined the way companies are structured, the way teams work. So jump out of the silos and have different possibilities of marketing, product, tech, data, design, etc. It's a teamwork, and I think this goes for governments as well.
Margarete, would you like to add something?
Yeah. Yes. Do you hear me now? It's possible?
We hear you, but the quality is not particularly good. But let's try it.
Okay. Then I leave it out, or maybe very slowly. I don't know. Does it work now better? Can you hear me better now?
Better now.
Better now. Yeah. Okay. Try this one. So I think it has truly been said. It's about teamwork, but it's also about leadership. And what you need is like a matrix structure, even if I did not like them too much in my countries, in my companies, when I was in the companies. But you need a team that is around somebody like Dorothee or myself, who is specialized in a topic and who can also give guidance, advice, and also help during these processes. Because the processes will not just happen, and also the projects will not just happen. But I do it in practice in a way that I cooperate, and I know that Dorothee is also doing it like this, that we cooperate with a respective minister who is then responsible in their area. For business, it's easier because I'm also responsible for business and economics, but also in the health sector, or especially in schooling, where the Minister of Education and myself work together and to form the master plan, or the Minister of Infrastructure and myself. And it is all about these projects, and you need to monitor them. You need to roll them out like in companies, even if in politics we sometimes do not like this comparison, but it needs the principles of large companies, because there is not so much difference, a little bit more, but you have a lot of stakeholders, like you have as a startup, you have different stakeholders. You also have the stakeholders when you're in politics or in businesses. I think it's a combination of both, of all being prepared, but also for somebody driving the whole process and keeping it alive, because sometimes it will just not happen by itself.
And maybe, may I add one sentence? And along the way, when you build up or put up such a ministry, you would need to pass a law, right, by the way, that forbids sensitivity. I think that would help too.
Okay. Thank you, Dorothee. I just got the message that you have to leave the conversation, or your time is up.
Well, as we said, if it's fine with the 7 o'clock, I just have a call after 7, so that's fine. I can do one more question if it's okay.
Then I'll start with you on the next topic, and that is the topic of human capital. So I think a common theme that the three of you have been touching upon is the fact that we need the right people. We need the specialists who work in the companies, whether it's startups or large corporates, in order to manage digitalization, in order to implement digitalization, speaking of software developers. And my question to all three of you is, how do you plan to staff the thousands of open IT jobs that have not been filled so far? So just to take some figures, in Germany, we have, according to Bitkom, more than 120,000 open IT positions. In Austria, we're talking about something between 10 to 15,000. And in Switzerland, we're talking about 5 to 10,000 open IT positions. What measures are you taking, and what are your plans for this?
I think Marc already said a lot about it today. It already begins at school, and for me, it begins in primary school. We need to get students excited about IT at school. We need them to be excited about technology. So I was happy that my kids were excited with SpaceX the other night. Of course, now it's on Saturday, maybe due to the German weather conditions. But programming must be compulsory subject. We must also convince the girls, and that's why I say we have to start very early, that it's cool and there's no big difference when you are 6 years old. It's a big difference when you are 13 or 14, and then try to start. So this topic has unfortunately been neglected, and I don't know how it's in Switzerland or Austria, but in Germany, it's still okay if you're a grown-up woman and you're giggling and saying, in math, I wasn't very good in math. No one would ever say that they were really bad in German in school, because everyone would think they are stupid, yeah. But in math or physics, that's still fine, or chemistry, and that's not okay. Or we had the other retailer a few years ago, they sold shirts where they said, yeah, I was only there in math, but I didn't play a role, and that's fine. And everyone bought those shirts. I think this is way important. And then the other way, not only take your own human capital, but make everyone move to Europe or to Germany or to Switzerland and Austria, is that to show them that we have a different surrounding, that you are really free when you are coming to our country. So politics, of course, is important. Now you see it in the COVID crisis, how important it is, how you deal with it, and what kind of medicine there is, and how the hospitals are. So I'm sure that not only each German, but each Austrian, each woman or man coming from Switzerland, when we are somewhere abroad and we are on vacation and we are getting sick, the first thought is, I want to go back. I want to be in my own hospital, in my own country. And I think this is something which is really important too. So we have, of course, our landscape. We have, of course, our democracy, our political system, our healthcare system is really, really important. But the freedom in our universities, the freedom when you had the discussion right today on Twitter, Marc said Twitter wouldn't have been invented in Germany, yes, but now if they want to move to one of our countries, it would be maybe better for those platforms. So just to put it that way. So we have a lot of advantages compared to other countries. And I'm coming back to my first answer when I talked about AI. It's all about our values too. And I truly and strongly believe in our values. And I think those are with the best in the world. And so everyone can come to us too.
Thank you. Margarete.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Dorothee.
Okay. Thanks. So, Margarete, also touching upon the topic of human capital, you have started initiatives such as Fit for Internet, which aim to increase the competence level of digital literacy in Austria. What are some of the initiatives that you're driving forward in order to really upskill the Austrian population and provide the staff that we need in the area of IT?
Can you understand me well, Ben? Is it okay?
It's fine, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. So I also have to leave soon. Unfortunately, we've talked now. It was very interesting. We have done this platform, especially Fit for Internet. It's so-called My Baby platform. Fit for Internet is something where we are joining together with companies and to have different projects to increase the level of digitalization, so that everybody is starting at the level where she or he is. And one example is, which I mentioned before, is that the European Union has developed a very good scala or schedule about the digital skills and this on which level you are. But I have not found one country inside the European Union or outside in Europe as a whole who has implemented this. Therefore, we have taken this, and now each Austrian can do this online, can see where her or his digital skills are, on which level in the daily area, and now we're developing the skills more up in the expert area. And from there on, we are starting a platform where, according to where I am, I can have the digital courses, online learning courses. And here, coming from the IT sector, I've discussed with SAP, with IBM, with Cisco and others to provide their courses, which they online e-learning courses, which they normally give only to their employees, publicly to all people. And this is an idea which I'm very much fond about. Then you're responsible yourself, but you have access to it and you know where you start from. And this is one of my most important projects. And it's all about learning outside school. The school master plan for digitalization is different. This digital master plan for schools. But outside, it's something we need to learn in our daily lives, and it needs to be accessible for everybody. So I want to say thank you. Ben, by the way, I very much like your figure, which is in the corner of my TV screen and behind your shoulder. So take care, and thank you very much that I could join you.
Thanks, Margarete. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, Marc, I think it's just you and me left in this conversation.
Let me give you just. I think everybody needs to leave now, but let me give you one last answer to that, which has not been touched. Maybe it's not about education. It's not about the universities, but it's about lifelong learning. My father learned a job. He was an architect. And he kept his skills basically for 4 decades. That was okay. And I think for all our parents, it was the same. Today, you have to relearn and relearn and relearn. And this lifelong learning kind of mentality, but also to have the offers to do so, is absolutely crucial to what you just mentioned, to fill up the empty spaces that are definitely looking for talents.
one last question. I had a look at the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Index. Switzerland ranks number 5. And what really struck me is that from all the countries participating or that have been analyzed in this index, Switzerland was number 1 when it comes to the topic of skills. So obviously it seems that you have an excellent education and a culture that really fosters learning and skilling also in the area of IT research and education. But one thing struck me when I talked to one of the C-level executives I met at your digital day last year. And with WeAreDevelopers, we're one of the largest platforms for software developers in Europe. So we reach hundreds of thousands of developers and connect them with companies. And when I talked to this executive, I told him, he told me about how many developers he's missing and that he has a huge need for new staff. And I said, well, we can provide this. We can provide developers from all across Europe to join your company. He said, I would love to do that, but unfortunately in Switzerland we have a quota, and we've reached the limit of this quota, and we're literally by law not able to take up new IT talents from abroad.
Very good point to finish this up. So you see, at the end of the day, I think this has been a good discussion, interesting discussion, how complex it is. And the framework is so important. Immigration laws in Switzerland are actually hindering talents to come to Switzerland. And I checked also, again, you see, I'm a ranking guy because I think it's the aggregation of actually how strong we are. In immigration laws, Switzerland is on rank 26. By the way, Germany only 25. And now listen to this, to all Austrian friends here, Austria 51. But you are right. Quotas and immigration laws are crucial, to bring in the people, to bring in the talents. Last point, yes, Switzerland is extremely well skilled, still, surprisingly to me. That is the reason why Google has its largest out of America base in Zurich, with roughly 4,000 people working out of, I think, 95 different nations. But let's not relax on that good and strong point. I think we need to keep on running. And I would like to thank you for making this possible. This is a wonderful platform, and what you have achieved with WeAreDevelopers is extremely remarkable, Ben. Really, high respect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. I know you're on a tight schedule, so thanks for your contribution also in the name of the developers joining us today, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Ben.
Bye.
Was fun. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.